Hey everybody, how's it going out there? My name is Daniel and I'm sincerely glad you're here. The name of this show is Living the Creative Act, where we read through The Creative Act by Rick Rubin and talk about it. Today we're reading the section called Crafting, which is pages 163 to 167. And today's scenery is looking north from Riverside Park Pier 1. You're going to see some clouds floating east and some beautiful autumn colors in the trees there. One quick announcement. I'm applying to the David Prize to work on my Subway app underway. The deadline is tomorrow, and I'll keep you up to date on how it goes. You can go ahead and Google the David Prize NYC. It should be the first hit. All right, should we get into today's reading? The section is called Crafting. Let's dive right in. He writes, once a seed's code has been cracked and its true form deciphered, the process shifts. We are no longer in the unbounded mode of discovery. A clear sense of direction has arisen. Often beknownst to us, we find ourselves in the craft phase. Now comes the labor of building. We work to add to a foundation that has revealed itself through our experimentation. The lines have been drawn. Now we're filling in the colors. Where the earlier phases were more free and open-ended, the inspirations and ideas that appear now are more directly related to the issues at hand. We are looking for a shape that fits a specific whole, whereas before we were just looking for shapes. In some ways, the craft phase is one of the least glamorous parts of the artist's job. There is creativity involved, but it often carries less of the magic of exploration and more of the labor of bricklaying. This is the point in the journey where some struggle to carry on. For now, we need to look away from the open field and turn toward a winding staircase 100 stories tall. A long, precarious climb lies ahead. We may be tempted to turn back and chase the thrill of feeling the light bulb flicker on above our heads. But the first two phases have little purpose or meaning on their own. Art may only exist, and the artist may only evolve by completing the work. How do we decide which experiment to craft? We continue to follow hints of excitement. Each one of us has to find our own path. If several directions seem captivating, consider crafting more than one experiment at a time. Working on several often brings out a healthy sense of detachment. When solely focused on one, it's easy to get tunnel vision. While it may appear a project's moving in the right direction, we are too closely entwined with it to truly know. Stepping away and returning with fresh eyes brings clearer insight into next steps. Switching to other projects will engage different muscles and patterns of thinking. These may shed light on paths otherwise unseen, and this may happen over the course of days, weeks, months, or years. Even in a single work session, moving between different projects can be helpful. There are also times when a single seed has so much power that you choose to focus on it exclusively, and that is your choice to make. In the experimentation phase, we planted the seed, watered it, and gave the resulting plant time to grow in the sun. We let nature take its course. Now in this third phase, we are bringing ourselves to the project to see what we can offer. There is one reason the boundary between experimentation and the craft phases isn't a linear progression. We often move back and forth between the two, because sometimes what we add isn't as good as what nature is bringing. When we realize this, we stop and go back to where nature left off. Whereas the experimentation phase is about what the seed has to offer, now we are applying our filter, reviewing the totality of our experience in the world and searching for connections. What does this remind us of? What can we measure it against? What does it relate to that we've noticed over the course of our lives? In this phase, we begin with a project that has naturally developed. We recognize potential in it, and we see what we can add, take away, or combine to further develop it. The craft phase is not just a building up, it is also a breaking down. The goal of developing the work can be accomplished through running a pruning process of small cuts. We decide which details and directions might be removed so that more energy and focus can be used to feed the core elements. While the craft phase can be difficult, that is not always the case. There are some artists whose focus is more on formalizing an idea than executing it. And in some projects, outsourcing the craft is what's called for. Many of Andy Warhol's paintings were done by other artists and by machines, while he supplied the ideas and maintained authorship. Some famous California rock bands of the 60s didn't play on their own albums, and some prolific authors just invest characters and storylines and leave it to other writers to fill out the prose. When it comes to performing these labor-intensive aspects of the process yourself, it is not a question of right or wrong. It's project-dependent. Remain open to doing whatever it takes to make the art as good as it can be. Whether this means inserting yourself more into the details of the process or stepping further back from them. For some projects, an artist may feel it's necessary to be involved in all of the work. The physical act of crafting may give them greater understanding of the art and more direct control over the details. Other projects may be better served if the artist acts as a maestro or designer in this phase, conducting the work of others. Crafting can be daunting. It's helpful to think of it as another opportunity for play. For some artists, crafting is their favorite part of the process. There's natural joy and sense of accomplishment in following a set of instructions to create something physical and beautiful. The love and care they put into this phase can be clearly recognized in the final work. Whew. Yeah, I've been pretty vocal about this. One of the main themes in this section was when to continue searching and when to continue developing. And given last week's reading, try everything, I feel like that's the answer. And he even says that in this section, you have to find your own path. And that section last week of Try Everything really freed me up to experiment on how I experiment. He talks about how good it feels to feel that flickering of that light bulb, and you know I love that. I love coming up with new ideas. And how we organize our time is up to us. I have so much fun filling up my queue, but then I don't get to enjoy all the projects that I come up with. So when I'm in this free-flowing state of ideas, I do feel luxurious and rich. I feel like I'm at a buffet. I don't need to taste everything. I can just smell it going by and enjoy it. I don't need to commit anything. I observe from my throne. I love that feeling. I feel rich wasting ideas. I don't need every idea I have to become something. That's how many ideas I have. I feel so rich. I also feel sad letting these ideas go past, though. If only I had more time. So much potential is lost. What could be, what should be, if only. And that's one of the reasons that I post these ideas that I have to the subscriber only channels of the Discord, so that maybe other folks might pick them up and be inspired. He says it's up to us to continue how we develop our ideas, when to continue searching. And if an idea isn't inspiring you to work on it, maybe it's time to find an idea that does. It's just information, and there's no there's no right or wrong, which is still sometimes a little difficult to wrap my brain around. I mean, it's what I want. I want this Subway app to exist. I want this podcast to exist, and I make time. I make time to do it, and I wish I had even more time to give. But now that you've kind of revealed these phases, I'm thinking like maybe these are kind of good guidelines to group ideas together. So far, we've seen him say seed, experimenting, and crafting. And I've peeked ahead. There's also a completing phase. Currently, I have my to-do list as projects, ideas, and jobs. Jobs are like tasks. But then everything's kind of clumped together. The stuff for the Subway app, the stuff for the podcast, healthcare stuff, admin stuff, it's all kind of clumped together. And I wish there was kind of multiple ways to see things. So I guess right now I put seeds in the idea category. But it would be nice to kind of keep track of my experiments also. Experimentating, I misspelled it. And then he kind of talks about teamwork at the end, kind of in an indirect way, saying, as Randy in the chat is saying, it was shocked when he said some people outsource some of the crafting parts. Yeah, I guess so. I guess it could still be a successful art. I think if people don't know that though, they can get like offended, I guess. I think it was it Boney M, or the same producers that did Boney M. They had they were lip syncing on stage, and people didn't figure it out later they were lip syncing, and they were so upset. But now lip syncing is just kind of a thing. Like all Bollywood movies do it. Oh, so many people on TikTok do it. Yeah, I guess I feel that if it's my idea, I'm the one that should do it. And for one, like I don't have money to pay people to do the ideas. I think these examples, like music producers or Andy Warhol, they had a little bit more cash money to hire folks to work on their ideas. I don't know what I can offer to someone other than, well, I guess, yeah, I've been limiting my eyes to money. I know I have more to offer other than just money, such as teaching and attention, and maybe I can barter some help for some of my projects. Like I need tutorials for FQ auth. I need, there's small tasks for the Subway app and the podcast that I could possibly outsource. especially like social media management stuff. Where posting the same thing to all these different platforms just does take up a lot of time. Yeah, I think like the idea of like completing something, I think sometimes that can feel bad, like or like a deadline of like, oh, it's something I have to do. But I guess for me, like reminding myself that, these are features that I want in the Subway app, or these are things that I want to see on the podcast. That does help motivate me. And I guess I'm still figuring out the balance between thinking up new ideas, because I can't just turn that off. Like working on the Subway app and working on the podcast, which I guess is my three side projects right now. Because of course there's work, working to prove that I deserve healthcare and food. I know one thing I've done as far as developing goes is to kind of set a deadline in a way, which is kind of what a live show is. Like the live show is at this time, and what I have prepared is what is what comes out, which means that I won't spend way too long on it. But I always see more prep that I can do. Like, does a podcast have a final form? Do you get to an episode and be like, this is it, I'm done? I I can clearly see how each episode has gotten a little bit better. I've been able to put a little bit more into it. And I don't think there's ever going to be like a final episode. Perhaps one day I'll move on, or one day we'll finish the book, but we could also just start the book from the beginning, or find a different book. Peabody Code says, if Vapor wasn't around, what would your backend be? Oh, cool. Programming question. Probably Hummingbird. It's also a Swift on the server backend that I'm very curious about. I've written a small project in it and I liked it, and I want to do more in it before I kind of officially recommend it. But I'm very curious about it right now. Peabody Code says Swift on the server hasn't really took off, it seems like. That's okay. Not everything needs to be super popular to be fun. Not everything is going to be so popular as vanilla. Vanilla is so popular that people call it vanilla if it's boring. Yeah, their Discord is a little quiet right now. That's for sure. Well, I guess that's all the notes that I've prepared for this section. Oh, there's one other bit that I caught again while we were reading it. Oh, Peabody Code says, debate going around in my head is choosing Django or Laravel or convincing someone to use Swift for server. Yeah, people get very passionate about the code that they write. Oh yeah, doing multiple projects at once. Um, this is one thing that really helps me feel sane. Having a 9 to 5 is having my side projects. Because ideas from work I get to use at home, and ideas from home I get to use at work. There's definitely a 1 + 1 = 3 going on there. But engaging different muscles and patterns of thinking, like I feel like I work way more than 40 hours a week, but it's all on different stuff. And because it's different, that's what makes it feel fun. Like some video games, like you're still kind of like working, right? You're still doing tasks, doing quests, trying really hard to beat a boss. Like it's still work. It's just it's different than your regular work. And that's something I've been thinking about, like why is that? And I think it's this idea of engaging different muscles and patterns of thinking. Randy says he talked about switching between projects with ideas, but that made me think about the challenges of context switching. I guess it's a trade-off. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I can just refer back to last episode of try everything. Like your path is yours. How much context switching you want to do is up to you. Um, I'm lucky enough to have a separate computer for gaming, so I can keep my project open on this computer and game on that computer, which I feel lucky about. Um, I guess another thing is if context switching is that big of a problem, you could be curious about ways to lessen that cost of making sure to write notes for yourself or make sure you update all your notes before you switch. Um, One trick that folks use, especially when in TDD, is leave a test that's failing so that when you come back, you run the test, you're like, oh, that's where I was. I was over here. And then you just kind of go there, start off from there. Another nice thing about that is you give yourself an easy win to start that session back up with, and then you're back in flow, perhaps. Even in a single work session, he says, moving between different projects can be helpful. Randy says, having a separation of concerns or two computers for work and gaming is helpful with you keeping things separate. Yeah, it seems to be. um, I mean, I guess for one is that Windows seems just slightly better for gaming. Like there's so many games that are Windows only. I finally caved this year and bought a Windows machine for gaming. I had been strictly Mac for this many years of my entire life. Yeah, especially like some games can be more resource intensive, so you want to like close Xcode or whatever. Uh, so just being able to like keep it open feels nice. Randy says, I am the same now. Game on Windows, work on the Mac. Oh, right on. What are some things that you do for context switching? So one thing I noticed about this paragraph here, where he talks about swapping back and forth between experimenting and crafting, is he doesn't mention like bringing in like other seeds here. I wonder if he left that out intentionally for this paragraph, or if that was. Because I guess, especially for storytelling, they say like put all your little bits in like on pieces of paper and put them in a box, so you have all these little bits for putting a story together. And that sounds like his idea of seeds. Randy says, it's much better now, talking about context switching, as I am working on my own projects now, but at past jobs, I'd have to switch from feature to bugs to looking into other issues. And some of those spanned different languages and concepts, and a hard time making that change all the time. Yeah, I think also just it being the context of a job, I think maybe makes something a little bit less fun. Some people are good at that. I am not, says Randy. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if I'm good at it or not. I do it. Definitely context switch between, cooking lunch and eating it. And then, of course, clean up. Yeah, I guess this paragraph here, I feel like this does hint at bringing in other seeds, to use his terminology. Like, what does this remind us of? What can we measure it against? What does it relate to that we've noticed over the course of our lives? And that's kind of his definition of seed, like things we've noticed over the course of our lives. So I think this part is really interesting, where he says crafting is not just building up, but also breaking down. I feel like, especially with apps, which is, I guess, my favorite thing to make. With apps, they can definitely get really cluttered. And I feel like there's definitely a sense of I can't take away something because some user is using it. And that might be true. But also the user experience of a focused app feels so good. I think we've all kind of experienced the story of finding a new fresh app or a new fresh framework that's small and doesn't have all this legacy cruft. And then 5 years later, and we love it because it's so simple, and 5 years later, it's not. And I think especially for the Subway app, that's something I'm kind of aware of there's definitely more features that I do want to add, and making sure to add them in a way that doesn't detract the main user experience. Because I feel like that's kind of what my app, the Subway app, its main selling point is its focus. It's focused on New Yorkers that know the subway. It's not focused on tourists, but we have gotten positive feedback from tourists also. And like our competitors, they have to work on every single city's transit system, not just New York's. And buses too. Like buses, because it's just a road and they can go anywhere. Um, like leaving those out, I think also helps focus the app. Randy says, so crafting can help with scope creep. Yeah, I guess he's kind of saying here, like, make sure to also take things out, um, especially on like Project Runway or like TV shows like that. I can definitely hear the judge's voices saying, "You need to edit. There's too many ideas here." Yeah, I found Project Runway a very inspiring show. I would watch people make dresses and then feel fired up to go make my Subway app. And he just does a section break there. Yeah, I kind of wish he gave us a little bit more specific examples here. I mean, I appreciate that it's an abstract book, and I think in an abstract way, but sometimes an example would be great right here. Like he gives examples in the next section of like Andy Warhol getting help on his projects, but he doesn't have an example of taking away something. He just kind of says to do it. Let's see. What's something that I took away once and it turned out for the better? I mean, I guess early on in the subway project, there were things that we took out. I'm not sure I have a good example of this either. Well, I guess as I'm sort of crafting my life, I don't know if this is even a fair example. I'm crafting my schedule with my commitments and when I work on new stuff versus when I work on my main projects, versus when I just have open ended time. Cool. Well, I suppose that's about it for today. Oh, got another comment. Randy says, I'm thinking of taking away features because it would confuse the user or create too much technical debt. Yeah, like I know that my competitors for the Subway app, they can't take away features. I feel like they're stuck with the amount of features that they have, and that's where my app has an advantage. That's sort of they call that a moat in in VC funding, of like they will never be able to simplify their app down to what I have. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. I think what you're saying as an example of what he's saying, yeah, like simplifying the user experience or simplifying the development maintenance experience, as far as technical debt goes. Let's see, what am I crafting this week? Well, I added these slides toward the end here, and I kind of just wrote them in. And I do want to, what's the word? Make it easier to add kind of notes for slides at the end. I want to kind of signify that these slides are kind of my thoughts, and I want to signify that these slides are like the text from the book. Oh, and of course I'm crafting the application to the David Prize that's due tomorrow. I worked on that so much this week, drafting and redrafting and redrafting again. The David Prize is, they're going to give $200,000 over 2 years to 5 different New Yorkers who have an idea to improve New York. And my pitch is, if I get this money, I can not work on my job. I can focus on making this app even better, and look at how all these New Yorkers like it. If I had more time to put into it, it would help even more people. So we'll see what happens. Cool. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Hit that like or subscribe or follow button wherever you are. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next week at 2 p.m. NYC time for the next section of Living the Creative Act.